Hello, I'm your host, Leonard Duncan. Welcome to a new episode of ATV-TALK, a motorsports podcast. Please join us every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We bring you interviews with industry professionals, live events, live news about the motorsports industry in every episode. Enjoy the show. Whether we are out riding with our friends and family or racing in extreme environments, we all need good tires. That's why I recommend GBC Power Sports Tires, a division of Greenball Corp. Their products, which include XC Master, Mini Master, and Groundbuster 3, are what leading professionals in the ATV-UTV industry are using. You can get your tires at greenballtires.com or find them on Instagram as GBC Tires for further inquiries. Max Lindquist, welcome back to ATV Talk. How are you, brother?
Oh, doing good, Leonard. Appreciate you having me back. Always a good time.
Oh, dude, you know, I really appreciate. I know how busy things are. And speaking of busy, you got something going on that nobody expected right at the moment. You're moving your shop.
Yeah, just made it home from the Vegas race and all that fun stuff. And just as a family deal, mom and dad wanted to move. So, worked with the whole family and the brothers. So for me, in the process of moving the race shop, luckily, not a stupid far distance, just, it's enough to where it's 20 minutes up the road. Mom and dad got a new house and it doesn't happen to have a shop at the house. So I have a shop somewhere else. And you forget how much stuff goes into racing until all of a sudden you have to move it all. It's inventory. And then you're sitting there going through stuff and you're like, man, why do I still have this 85 engine from 2015 that, I probably haven't used in 5 years? Like the amount of things you seem to acquire are quite fascinating.
And the longer you race, the more and more you'll acquire.
Oh, yeah. The big thing for me is we're moving and the shop I'm moving into is similar in size. But my parents don't have near the garage space for all their stuff. So my race shop's a little smaller and then I have more stuff coming to it than what was in my race shop before. So the organization is going to have to be on the next level because it's starting to scratch my head on where I'm putting all this stuff. So we're gonna be herding out some machines pretty soon is where we're getting down to. So, but no, it's been all good. Just a nice, tedious process.
Well, that's good. How are your hands?
Oh man, we're back in business. So they've really come around fast. So the first week it was pretty rough, but I'd say at this point, I'm pretty much back to calluses and rocking and rolling. So
ready to go out and ride an hour and a half again?
I mean, maybe with a little different setup. So a little smoother track would be nice. I'm always in for some riding. I won't deny that, but that was a little brutal. So maybe 2 pairs of gloves, a little tape, a little better preparation, and I think I'll be good. That would be how I'd have to put that before I ride an hour and a half again.
So you understand the things I was trying to tell you before the race.
Oh yeah, and then some.
I never like to take someone of your caliber and tell you, that, hey, if you don't do this, you're not going to have success, because you are a professional and you are very, very fast and you're very talented. So you never want to throw that out like you're not, or insinuate that, hey, maybe you don't have a grasp on this. But they are two totally different worlds. And most people have to take a little pain before they realize that.
Yeah. I mean, I was expecting the unexpected a little bit. I knew it was going to be an interesting race. I just wasn't expecting, I guess, maybe I don't know how I'd put it. I knew it was going to be rough, but it was a different rough. we get certain races where it's a sandy track and you get big deep holes and it gets rough and rutted, and like you just really have to use your legs. Like for us, that's the big thing. It's like, don't sit down, like, always use your legs. And it didn't matter what I did there. The high speed top is what killed me. Like, I never am used to going 60 miles an hour down a straightaway, and the handlebars, like, you could just watch them vibrate up and down. Like, I had no steering vibrator clamps, no flex bars. So, like, you just had so much more feedback than I was used to. So, for me, that was the huge killer. Like, I didn't anticipate like having so much feedback in my hands throughout the race. Like, even after practice, like, there was feedback, but I was continuously softening up the bike and it was pretty good. But after the dirt bikes and everyone else all day, like, that track was so different. It just like totally tore up my hands.
But you had a good time regardless.
Oh, it was a blast. So awesome time. I mean, obviously would have loved to have done a little better, but I mean, it was a super cool event, like awesome time. The competition was great. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Just was really kicking myself with my setup. So I was riding like, man, I'm so unprepared for this. Like, it was like 3 turns and I'm like, yep, this is going to be a long race. Like, I can already feel my hands. Like, this sucks. So, but other than that, super enjoyable, super cool time.
Yeah, it was. I got to meet your mom.
Oh boy.
I got to meet your mom, and dude, she's a great lady. Super nice, super fan of yours. That's for sure. Yeah. Which that's mom. Right?
Oh yeah, mom and dad. They definitely take some pride in what we do. So that's for sure. And mom's definitely all in. So she definitely supports it and promotes me and pushes me. So no, it's always a good thing to have them around.
Hey, I asked you this when I seen you in Nevada. How's your brother's football season going, and how did all that work out for him?
They had a really great season. It's all over at this point now, but made it to the Final Four, going into the semifinals to the state championship. It would have actually been. They lost to the team that ultimately won state, but yeah, he had a super good year. I mean, I think it was 14-1 was the season. So that's great year. He had some, awesome games and all that stuff. So would have loved to have seen him go to state, but runner up wasn't, the Final Four wasn't so bad. So definitely a good season for them guys.
Well, yeah, tell him congratulations, and that's 14-1 is nothing to shake a stick at, and if you get beat by the ultimate winner, it softens the blow just a little bit.
Just a little bit. So
was your plan at the end of the year always to come out west?
Not at all. I would have loved to, but just with work and other things like that, how things were going, I had wanted to come out west. It just I hadn't, I guess, maybe planned on it. It was a hope. It was more of a prayer. And then with that other race coming up, just kind of worked out to where the family was able to make it work, and I was able to get there and had some things to try out and test. So it just worked out. But up until that point, like, I didn't necessarily plan on coming out just to run the works race. But with the Huevos deal and then the works on top of it, like, that was just another reason to have to come out west.
I know that I got some of your input from you when we did our live with Walker Fowler on Instagram. Your take on the Invitational.
Super cool event, fun time. Totally different than anything we're used to, but overall the competition was great. Gnarly track, but would definitely go back.
Right. Most everybody said that. you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously had its twists and turns and ups and downs with, events changing and things like that. But at the end of the day, like, it was a pretty cool format. It definitely, you weren't like, you couldn't go there. There was no one I felt that went there like expecting what happened and what we got for a track, which was super cool to show up and have no idea what you're going to get into. So for me, that was cool. And, just a really fun time to race people I've never raced before. You're racing the top guys from everywhere across the country, not just the motocross. So on that side of things, it was super cool to get to race and meet all those guys. But yeah, it was definitely a crazy event. So,
had you ever met John Natale before?
Yeah, I've known John just from coming up through the ranks and him obviously being a pro. I'm old enough to where I at least known him, have had a conversation, all that fun stuff, but never had the opportunity, to race him or, your Walker Fowlers and all the GNCC guys. So that part of it was super cool.
That's awesome. I mean, for a super fan like myself, I loved it. I was just in awe the whole night. Let's get it a little further in depth here. You match up with a cross-country Pro-Am rider in your first go around. He's definitely got an advantage over you during the obstacles. On your second switch, you had a problem.
Had a problem on both of them. So that out of the way. Yeah, me and the tires don't get along very well. Like, that's just plain and simple. But yeah, matched up with Jeremy Ladon there. Super cool dude for a little bit. I met him and know him. Definitely a fun, eventful race. Would have loved to have stayed off my head, but like you were saying there, second time around, first lap took off and got hung up on the tires, hit them a little too soft. And then second go around, I wasn't going to get hung up on the tires, so went a little harder at them and went up and over the handlebars. And then from there, dismounted a charge and just, crossed my fingers it was going to work out and put together a pretty hot lap on the moto side of the track. And I just don't think he expected me to be there. Like, he had such a gap to where I think when we came to that last turn, he just left the door open a little more than he would have if he'd known I was there. And I was fortunately close enough to make a quick pass up the inside and take the win on that first round, which was super cool. Would have definitely loved to have had a little cleaner race, but it made it exciting for the fans. That's for sure.
Did you get to speak to Jeremy after that race?
Just a little bit, yeah.
How did he take it?
He was super cool to me. We didn't talk much, but shook hands, congrats. I definitely think he was shocked. Like, I don't think he expected me to be there. But he was super cool about it and respectful. So, hats off to him. Like, he rode a great race. I just got pretty lucky at the end of it.
At any point on that lap after you came off the machine, did you think it was over?
Oh, yeah. Like, instantly. As soon as I hit my head, I'm like, I'm going to lose in the first round. Like, I'm not even going to have a shot at this 10 grand. And I don't know, whenever I race, I've always, like, doesn't matter what sport I play, it's, always give it 100% to the finish. And even though I was that far behind, it was like, well, I knew, like, on the motocross side of things, obviously I had a huge advantage, machine set up for it a little faster. Like, so I knew there was a shot I could catch him. I just was more, like, I knew the odds weren't in my favor, but just put my head down and honestly didn't even really focus on him, just focused on the motocross track and doing everything as good as I could and as perfect as I could. And when it came down to the last two turns, like, all of a sudden I had him in my sights and I knew, like, the track was super fast and there wasn't many passing opportunities. So I knew, like, the finish line turn was probably going to be my best shot, and I had to make sure I was going to be close enough to make that happen. So all I did was get as close as I could. And, I really thought he knew I was there. And as soon as we came to that turn, like, he just gave me the golden opportunity, leaving the door open up the inside. And I was able just to stay in the throttle a little longer and drive it up inside and pretty much lock it up and shut down the inside of the turn and block them out. And, was able to pull off that win. But there was definitely, a few moments where I was kind of kicking myself that I was not even going to make it through the first round of racing.
Well, like I said in the show, in the YouTube version and in the audio version, that was the race of the night. Really, that set the tone for everybody. The crowd was just so electric, and they were screaming when you passed. I didn't get to see all of it. I got to see him set up on the outside with it, and I said there was enough room there, but I didn't know if you were close enough to stuff it in there, and obviously you were.
Yeah, I mean, I was a little nervous because it was so dusty. Like, I really couldn't see where the heck I was going coming into that last turn. All I could see was the tire they had laid out. Like, I could just see the outside of the tire that we had to go around, and like, I knew if there was a gap like that, that was my only opportunity. Like, if there was a gap on the inside of that tire, I had to take it no matter what. And when that gap showed up, like, I just made sure to stay in the gas as long as I could. And luckily I somehow was able to slow down enough to not let them cut back underneath me. And was able to kind of squeak that one out, but definitely, a little bit of a heart pounder right there. I had the adrenaline going, that's for sure.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I want to go back to earlier this year. You and I had a conversation. You were in Florida. You were mending. You'd only been on the machine, I believe, when we spoke one time.
Yep.
Daytona was weeks away. Has your injury affected you since?
No, honestly, as soon as I got back on the machine, and obviously a little tender and sore at first, the first couple days, like, wasn't necessarily myself on the machine, just stamina wise, but like, really, once I got back in riding shape, I, to this day, haven't had any issues with that arm, which has been great. Yeah, been super fortunate with that.
So when you weren't in riding shape 100% when you went to Daytona, the race gods were looking out for you as far as the weather, so that it wasn't going to be the same kind of race. How did Daytona break down for you physically?
It was a crazy day. I was exhausted. I mean, I did one lap in qualifying and had a stator blow apart in the motor and pushed the machine from the track to the trailer for qualifying for the first qualifier. So I didn't even complete, like, I hardly completed a full lap. So I didn't know the track. I was exhausted after pushing the bike back. And then did a complete motor swap in 40 minutes to make the next qualifier. Literally, like, rolled up to the qualifying as the guy, like, the first couple guys were already on the track. And got a couple laps in, was super tight. Like, I had no time on the track, so I still had my big tires on at that point because I didn't have time to change them. Everyone else was pretty much on smalls for the second qualifier. So I kind of just did a few laps, learned the track, and, went back and went to a setup I had kind of been practicing on and put the smalls on, and everything kind of just worked out in my favor from there. But physically, like, that was a very hard day. I definitely can't say that was my best day of endurance. That's for sure. My body was pretty beat, especially after the main, like, about halfway through that main, just really had to mentally focus because my body definitely wasn't where it needed to be, but was able to kind of hang on and do what I needed to stay where I was at.
And where was that?
Well, honestly, I was sitting fourth. Luckily, I don't know what happened. Usually I'm not a great starter, but pulled off 2 good starts, both in the qualifier, was third out of the gate and ended up second in the qualifier. And then in the main came out fourth and pretty much just ran there. Like I ran fourth till the halfway point of the race, had pressure behind me, but the track was so hard to pass on that I kind of just like, all I tried to do was basically keep up with the guys in front of me. Like I was just kind of mirroring what everyone else was doing and protecting my insides. Like I went into Daytona knowing I wasn't 100% and I didn't have a ton of time on the machine. So like my goal was just top 5, get some good points to start the season and like build. We had a month to build from there. So being fourth, like I was content with where I was at. Made it halfway through the race, and then Hogue had an issue and blew up out front. So that moved me onto the podium in third. And from there, like I actually kind of just settled in. Like at that point, I didn't have a ton of pressure on me from behind. And the 2 guys in front of me, Joel and Bryce, kind of like Joel had a good gap. Bryce, like just out of the roost. And from there, I kind of like just settled in and was good with third. And he kind of pulled away a little bit. And I just happened to luck out that he would make a mistake on the last lap of the race and go over the bars. And I inherited second. So really for me, it was more just about hitting my marks and finishing the day. I really like never had to like push or like I had people to race. Obviously I was in the mix, but like I never was in a tight battle or nothing. Like it was more just me putting in laps and just consistently hit my marks.
The focus that you were under at that point was pretty intense, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it was kind of what got me through the day. Obviously the body was beat. I had a ton going on between, swapping motors and all that fun stuff. But the one thing that got me through that day was just the focus was on point. Had really good starts and just I went into that race, knowing anything could happen and, believing that if I gave it 100%, like I'd come out with good results. And after those good starts, like that makes it so much easier. And I really just focused on myself. Like I knew with how the conditions were, how the track was, like the race was more going to be between myself and the track making a mistake or doing something stupid. So I knew as long as I would keep it on all 4 wheels and hit my marks, like I might not have been the fastest guy, but I was sure going to be close. And it all kind of just like worked out in my favor in some crazy way.
That I know I seen that you were on the podium and I was happy for you because I had known that through our conversation that you may not be ready.
I wasn't even supposed to be riding, to be totally honest. My date with the doctor to be cleared to be 100% active was 2 days after Daytona. The doctor gave me the okay to ride. He told me 2 weeks before the event, I met with him, 2.5. And he said, it's your choice. You can ride. He's like, I know you're physically strong enough to ride and your arm's going to hold up. He's like, but if you have a get off, I'm not 100% guaranteeing that your arm's as strong as it should be if you would fall off. So he had said he would suggest skipping the race or rolling it and then getting back to riding after the race. For me at that point, I heard that he was okay with me riding. I just couldn't crash. So if all I had to do was ride within my limits and not push myself too hard, and I could compete. I'm not one to crash much, so I took a little bit of a gamble. I'm sure my doctor was just shaking his head, but he's a super cool dude and get along to this day. He was a trainer at my school and all that, so I knew him a little bit. But it was kind of one of those things where when we had talked, like I was still waiting on that information. I didn't know if I was going to be able to race because the conversation previous to that was, hey, like we're going to try and get you healthy by Daytona. Like most likely probably won't be able to race, but you should be able to get back to riding at around that time. And I just, when I went home for that next checkup, I was pretty good about the physical therapy and everything that went with it. And he kind of gave me the go ahead to like, I was allowed to be weightlifting, doing anything I wanted. He just didn't want me doing anything where I could like potentially, re-injure the arm. But he said if I wanted to get on the machine and, go putt around and, just to collect some points, like I could possibly do that. He just really didn't want to see me get in a crash or of some sort and re-injure. But I got on the machine just to see if I could ride it 2 weeks before the event. And I got on and I did like a lap real slow. And at that point I was like, this is dumb. If I'm riding, I might as well just be going wide open. So of course I had to push the limits and find out that my arm held up really good. It was a little fatigued afterwards, but like I rode a 20-minute moto and I was pretty good. And I knew Daytona was only a 15-minute race. So from there, I rode like 6, 8 more times, something like that. Like I rode quite a few days in a row. And me and the doctor were in touch and he's like, cause I called him right away. I was like, hey, like I rode, it went well. Like, what do you think? And, I went and actually got x-rays while I was out of town and sent them to him. And he's like, you can keep riding, but I would prefer to not see you on the gate lining up to race. And I'm like, well, am I cleared or am I not? He's like, well, I'll clear you to ride. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm cleared to ride. Like I'm going to show up to the race. So, long story short, we showed up and it all worked out. But yeah, it was a crazy couple weeks.
How did your conversation go with the doctor after the race?
It was a fun conversation for me, to kind of tell him that his surgery went awesome. The arm held up and we were second. I don't necessarily know if that would be what he'd have to say about that conversation. He was probably thinking I was an idiot. But he at the same time was like, well, let's, follow up and just, make sure you didn't do any damage. So went in and got x-rays after the race a week later. And he saw him and was like, well, you look healthy. So you might as well, he's like, you done it once, you might as well keep going. So you look good. I'm thinking he wasn't a super fan of what happened, but at least I've had the results to kind of back up why I did it. So I felt a little more okay with that situation.
So let's take it a little further. We have young listeners and young racers. I know you're a professional. I know you do this for a living. Some advice to them for injuries and things that they are going to deal with, not being a professional. What would you say to the younger riders?
Listen to your doctors. They're pretty smart. I mean, really, like for me, obviously my doctor maybe didn't think I should have necessarily been racing, but the only reason I would say I probably was able to race, or even at that point where it was a conversation, was just, doing the physical therapy and going the extra mile to, put in that extra work. Obviously, key number one is just to stay on the bike and stretch, do what you can to prevent injury. Like that's only been my, I've only ever broken that collarbone in my career. Like I've really tried to limit, and that's something I've learned, from other wiser riders too. Like try and stay off the ground. If you gotta take a second one day, take a second. Like if you don't feel comfortable, like it's good to push yourself to your limits, but not always exceed them. Push to that point and stay there. But yeah, when it comes to injury, I definitely think, just keep your head up and stay positive, and, try not to push it too crazy. And, when you do get the opportunity to get back to it, just, give it 100% effort, and, you'll eventually get back to where you want to be.
Well, just for grins and giggles sake, make sure that you get your checkups, make sure you go to the doctor, do the things that you need to, because speaking from my experience, when you don't go, it alters your life.
I'd agree. Like, I mean, just, take the time to take care of yourself. It's something that I'm really learning, even still, like, just on how to take care of your body, going to the chiropractor, and, taking care of your muscles in between races and stuff like that. Like, if something's bothering you, can't be afraid to go get it checked out and take care of it. Sometimes, like, definitely sucks not being able to ride, but I'd rather be able to ride for the next 10, 15 years than, a couple days or something like that. So, but yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, get your checkups, do your physicals, and, stay in as great a shape as you can, and take care of the issues when they seem to pop up before they.
That's good advice. That's really good advice. You had kind of an up and down year. You had some successes and some non-successes. Looking on to 2023, I did get to see some new things with your machine, and it was, excuse me, it was really fast. Give me what you're feeling as you're. I know you're prepping for the year, but as you prep, what's your feeling going into 2023?
I mean, I feel good about it. The past 2 off seasons, I've been hurt, had injuries, had to take care of them. This year, made it through healthy and in one piece, and taking that time to really put it into the machine and the program, and have a few new faces coming aboard and a few changes. Big one being bringing in JH Racing, doing the motors and the shocks. As everyone's kind of seen out on the West Coast, got to put some of that to the test. And so far, having really good results and great feelings about the program and the motor and how that's all going. Obviously, lots more hard work to be put in and done, but super happy with where we're at, putting the program together, and I'll be super excited to see what we come up with for a final product to bring to Daytona.
That's awesome. I know you've been doing some motor testing, but have you changed up your normal shock setups to where you're trying some new things there as well?
Yeah. For me, coming off this past season, kind of like you said, up and down year, just, don't feel like I necessarily had all the time put into the bike and the machine that I maybe needed to come into the year, being hurt and all that. And, with JH Racing, he's been a huge help bringing me in and taking care of me. And he started doing the shocks, which for me has been a really big help. It was something that I needed another, hand with, someone that knew a little more about them. I can obviously, ride and kind of tell you what I like and what I don't, but, needed someone that knew a little bit more of the inside to help me out. And yeah, that's definitely a big focus here this off season, is just being a little more prepared for each and every race, rather than, coming in and making adjustments at the track, trying to simulate races, go to tracks that are similar and come up with setups that work at certain tracks and not at others, and try to go into the season with multiple setups sitting on the shelf to where, we're not such a guessing game when we get to the race, kind of know what we have and what we're up against. So with that, he's been a super big help there, super knowledgeable, just, helping me in my program. So I definitely think, we'll have a pretty good solid program coming into the year.
That's excellent. I wanted to ask questions. I know it's starting to get cold, or it's already snowing where you are. What do you do for riding? Do you get in the truck and drive, or are you off the machine right at the moment?
So obviously, had that race out there. That was the last time I rode 2 weeks ago. And at the moment, I'm kind of taking some time off with moving and everything. Usually every off season, November is kind of a off month machine wise. Usually I try and ride September and October if I have the capability to stay on the machine, and just, it's more of a, go have fun and ride rather than like, having to go to the track and do 2 25-minute motos and, like having a routine. Like, it's more like there's an open ride here. I want to go ride with the buddies and have fun. And then also, now that we're getting later in the off season, like start to motor test and test new parts, shocks, just try to get a head start on 2023 has been my big thing this year. Like, we've had a ton of time on the track riding and testing and figuring out, what direction I'd like to go for 2023 with the machine and a few things. So yeah, that's more kind of where I'm at. Is I rode a lot September, October, November. Now we had the race and stuff that was fun to compete in, but from here till mid-December, I'll probably take a good time away from the machine and just focus on build season, putting together new race machines and freshening up all that practice stuff that I've kind of destroyed over the year. So that's kind of where we're at there. And then hopefully mid-December rolls around, I'll get to go and I'll try and travel somewhere and ride for a long weekend or something, do a little more testing. And then from there, I'll kind of hang out till sometime in early January. And that's when we'll really get back into the swing of things.
Does that mean you'll be heading down to Deckers?
Not necessarily Deckers. Super cool place. Definitely a good place to go ride and train. I don't necessarily have plans to head there right away. Just gonna kind of do my own thing. I'm gonna head a little farther west. Thinking being in the Texas area just to be a little closer with JH and be able to do a little more testing in that area to start the season for a month or two. And then from there, make our way to Florida and do some riding over in that area.
That's a pretty good plan. Texas stays fairly warm. It's still going to be a little cool in some places.
Yeah, we'll be in the Houston area, so shouldn't be too bad. I feel like it's more the rain that you kind of got to watch out for and some cold nights. But where I'm coming from, as long as there's not snow on the ground, I'll be cool with it.
Yeah, I'm sorry you laugh. I laugh, but snow is just. I don't want to get into the snow at all.
No. I like four-wheelers. I try to stay away from snowmobiles, so I'd like to head south. So I like warm weather. I like to be like the birds, migrate.
Have you thought of relocating to another area instead of Wisconsin?
Definitely a thought, and definitely something that I could foresee happening in the future. Just getting out of school and all that, not something that's necessarily feasible for me yet. But it's definitely something, even as a family, like we've discussed moving. For us, it's more siblings in school and stuff like that still here. But myself personally, like, I definitely like to move somewhere a little warmer, could ride more year round and be maybe a little more centrally located for all these races. That would definitely be a huge bonus to moving as well.
Do you drive all the way back to Wisconsin after every race?
For the most part. Usually like wintertime, like we'll head down south here, in January, and then stay. Usually I'll stay on the road till late April, May-ish, just because there's still snow on the ground at home. But usually once it warms up back home all summer, I pretty much come back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about Like last year, I think I put on somewhere between 40 and 50,000 miles between all the races and traveling back and forth riding. So it's quite a few.
Yeah, that's a lot of miles.
Yeah, I would love to, start to make that a little smaller and smaller every season. That would be a great thing to do. So the fuel bill would be awesome at that point.
Excellent. Did you get to watch much of the quad cross of nations at all?
Yeah, a little bit. Kind of tried to pay attention to some of the lives, and then obviously all the videos that I followed, I've went back and been able to kind of catch up on what all happened. But for the most part, yeah, tried to keep up in touch with it.
What do you think of that event?
So I think it's something that pretty much every one of us on that line would love to compete in. I mean, I sure know I would. Like that's, I think that's, if you're any kind of racer, that's definitely something that has to be on the bucket list. Looks like a super cool, fun event. Great atmosphere. Like to get to go somewhere and represent your country, you can't say you've done that every day. So definitely a cool event to be a part of, I would say.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome stuff, man. Let me ask you this question. You're still young. Joel is getting a little older, still super fast. Wouldn't take anything away from him. When you were on the West Coast, I know you guys didn't go head to head, but how did you feel that with your new package and what you see him riding, how do you feel that you're measuring up?
Hard question at this point in time. Obviously, the dude's the champ. Like he's obviously the guy you're gunning to beat. But I really liked where I was at. Obviously, had a few mistakes and didn't get the results out west. Maybe necessarily I'd have liked, but from a package perspective of the machine and myself, like obviously isn't going to be easy, and definitely don't know if that's something that I'll be able to pull off right away. Would be going head to head with him, but definitely feel like I'm getting closer. I feel like we're making the right moves, and just inching my way closer and learning more and more as we go.
What do you think about if they change the rules to hybrids?
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the hybrid. As long as there's a factory manufacturer in it, just from what we kind of have as a platform on the Yamaha and everything, like I'm someone that's had the hybrid. I was still probably one of my favorite machines to this day to ride, but just expense wise, definitely, a tough deal. And then I think the competition's so good right now. Like the variance in machines isn't very much. We're all about on the same platform. And for me, I feel like it makes it more on the rider and the group of people around you that's putting the machine together. Like you're all starting with the same foundation for the most part. And then it's whoever, I feel like right now it's, whoever's taking the time and putting it into the machine and putting in the work, off the machine riding and stuff, is kind of who's winning. So from that perspective of things, I think that's a really cool part of, the OEM deal yet is it's kind of an equal playing ground. I feel like with the hybrid, there's a lot of room to play with some things there. At some point, could it be a possibility that I'd be in for? Maybe. At this point in time, definitely more of a fan of the OEM, like frame and cases deal. Just think it's pretty feasible and a pretty good platform, and it makes it really interesting racing.
That's a good perspective, I think. It's almost like spec racing, but it's not. Everybody can do whatever they want as long as they use, the factory cases, the factory frame with pivot points, and You can build your linkage or change your shocks or build your motor, to make as much horsepower as you can feel that it's going to keep it together.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. Like, I like the idea of, like you said, spec racing and all that, kind of like our pro stock class, like same kind of concept there. Just really like, you have someone supporting the sport with, Yamaha making a machine, like, feel like why not give them the business and, make it interesting. Like, it's not very often you go somewhere and everyone's on about the same machine and it just comes down to who's pinching the throttle. Like, that part of it to me, I find pretty cool. And then yet the difference in machines, what people choose for products and setups compared to others and how they can all work, what works, what doesn't, definitely a cool aspect of it too, I think.
It is. It really is. I like the factory platform. I'm concerned if they go hybrid that it's going to hurt the overall turnout. I know Mike Walsh would love for them to be hybrid racing. He's so busy now he can't keep up. So what's he going to do if he gets 20 to 25 frame orders?
That's kind of the conversation, even from our, couple pro meetings and stuff like we've had, like, if it's something we're going to do, like, I think it has to be something where there's a good heads up, like, a year or two in advance that it's going to be something we're going to do, because like you said, how do these few aftermarket companies provide all these parts and frames for people? Like, I have 4 or 5 machines, I have 2 practice bikes, 2 race bikes every year. Like, if everyone on that pro gate has 4 machines, we're building a lot of machines here this year. Like, I don't know if that's something that, over an off season would be able to be done. Like, I think you'd have, a lot of people scrambling. And at that point, I just think like you said, it opens up a lot of things that, I don't know. I just think it makes things more difficult than it needs to be. So that, and considering that all these, like you said, all these aftermarket companies, like, they're already making these great products for, a OEM machine, like, let alone an aftermarket machine. So from that perspective, like, they already have the business. I'm sure it's super cool, some of the things they come up with. Like you said, Mike Walsh is a genius. Like, he'll build something crazy. But I don't feel like it's something that's necessarily needed at this point in time.
I mean, that's a good perspective. I hope they don't implement it. I know some of the younger riders seem to think that they want to go there, but I'm hoping that they don't. I know that Works has changed their rule for 2023, and they're going to allow hybrids.
Okay. See, and that's interesting because it's still a totally different aspect of racing, like what you're going for. Because, like, that's a lot of our deal with the hybrids and the motocross is for a money thing. Like, I agree. If you leave the that hybrid stock, the motor, like, from the dirt bike, like, it's not, maybe any more expensive than an OEM platform. But for us, like, it doesn't seem to matter what you're going to run. You're going to build it the best you can and put everything you can into it. So at that point, what are you really, doing? Where I could see for myself from racing a works race, like, I ran a complete motocross setup at a works race. Like, I had my pro race motor in the bike. Like, I probably had a faster bike than everyone there that I was racing for the most part. Like, because you guys are built to have a good running machine, but it has to last for an hour and a half, where my machine's meant to go as fast as it can for 30 minutes. Luckily, JH built an awesome machine and it stayed together for an hour and a half, and the thing's a beast. But that's not, it was actually too much for what we were doing. Like, I could have actually used less motor and been just fine. Like, I didn't really need all that horsepower. I didn't feel in the sand and the works race, because it's such a long race and it wears you out. Where, same with, like, from talking to the GNCC guys, it kind of sounds they're the same way. Like, these races where you're running a long race, like, you can get away with running these stock dirt bike motors and stuff like that because you don't need all the horsepower. It needs to make it. And from that perspective, I could see where that would be an interesting conversation for works. Like, I feel like that the circumstances and things are a little different there.
Yeah, I'm worried that it's going to price itself out of existence.
I would still agree, and that's kind of why I'm against it in the motocross. I think it'll more just depend what people decide to do when they go to these hybrids, and for you guys in your works races, like, I'll be curious to see if they just take and plunk the dirt bike motor in, or if all of a sudden you have a $10,000 dirt bike motor going in a custom one-off chassis that's just going to be an animal. That would be where my concern would be too, of it makes it hard for everyone to compete at that point.
Exactly. And that's kind of what I worry about, to be honest with you. You have a handful of guys that are able to race production machines. You take those handful of guys working on a shoestring budget and add hybrids to it. You do those guys. If the hybrids are that much better, those guys can't go there.
Yeah, I mean,
they're financially not ready.
The only good news from what I've heard, and with some of the guys in the hybrids and a little bit of my experiences, like, I don't think it's going to be as big of a deal right away, just because there's so much development in the OEM stuff right now. I think it'll be more of an issue 2-3 years down the road when these guys have had the time to take this hybrid and modify the chassis and figure out how to make it handle with this different weight distribution and, this different motor and the different power spans. Like, that's been the big issue. I know with a couple of the guys, that have tried to do it. Like, I know Joel Hetrick raced one overseas. Like, the handling of the machine seems to go away when you put this dirt bike motor in the machine, just because of weight displacement and all that other stuff. So, I don't know if right away it's going to be a huge issue, but I could agree. I definitely think as as people migrate that way, like, you're going to open up the door to a lot of one-off custom aftermarket parts, and it's going to get crazy expensive making these machines do everything and anything you want them to do.
Kind of like the hybrid Lobo 250R, Lone Star 250R, Walsh 250R. I mean, whoever's it was, Aaron's. I mean, you had just tons of money in your 250R because that's what you needed to compete.
Yep. Agreed.
Crazy stuff to think about. So when we talk about the pro motocross group, obviously we've talked about a little about Joel. You and Chad are good friends, and he's helped you quite a bit. His program is pretty solid.
It's definitely the best of the best, top notch.
And I don't think he's going to get any slower coming out in 2023.
No, the dude doesn't have quit in him, so he'll figure something out to go faster.
Yeah, I had a conversation with him, and he seemed agitated that he was number 2.
Oh, for sure. You're not an 8-time for no reason. So you obviously don't lose at that point. So I've been around enough to know it's definitely underneath the skin a little bit. I'm sure he's doing everything and anything he can to not be next year.
I didn't know that he was riding with an injury.
Yeah, I think, it wasn't something that was season long, but it was definitely something later in the year that was, obviously a little bit of a, maybe issue or a problem. I don't think it was anything, crazy, but definitely another thing that, the guy had to work through. But you wouldn't have known. So it definitely didn't slow him down very much.
Right. You have some fierce competitors in your little circle of where you guys roll out. You got Nick Janusa, Bryce Ford, Brandon Hogue. and you're right in there in that mix. If I'm forgetting anybody, please forgive me, which I think I am. Jeffrey. Yeah, Jeffrey. Sorry, Jeffrey. So you have that little group right there that, I think Decker's going to be faster next year.
Yep. He should definitely be catching up to that group.
You never know with Cody. I think there's hot and cold streaks.
Definitely a few people that could step up.
When you break it down, I know that your goal is to be on the podium at the end of every race. You see small changes in some of these programs. If you had to pick the one that you feel you're going to have the most trouble with, who do you think it would be?
Right now, from what I've seen so far, I would probably say, your bet has to be Bryce Ford. The kid just went out and won the Huevos race, represented the USA very well, won over there. Don't know what they're doing, for program wise, but the kid's got confidence, and that goes a long ways in racing. So I definitely would say, like, he's a flashy, fast rider, and if he puts it all together, like, he's going to be a really hard dude to beat. Between him and then, you have your Brandon Hogue as well, that he's kind of questionable. Like, obviously was the third place rider of the year, well earned, did what he needed to do to be there. But now he completely swapped his program, from a Honda to Yamaha, new team. Like, that's a tough thing to do, but it can also be a great thing. So I think that one to me is more the, like, question mark, to see how that works out for him, whether it's, something that helps him or something that's going to take a little while to figure out. Not really sure, but obviously he'll be fast. So I would think those would be, obviously your Nick Januses and Jeffrey Rastrellis are going to be quick, but I just think from a, like, stepping up perspective, those are the two younger guys like me that I would say probably, have more room for growth, and to figure out a few more things. So that would definitely be who I would, say would be up towards the front.
Well, I haven't talked to Nick lately, but some of the pressures seems to be lifting off of him with his house being done. His father, I believe, is getting better. So that means he's going to be able to focus more on racing. Jeffrey's getting more comfortable with running his own program. And I believe he has some help coming in for 2023 as well. So, those old wily veterans, you can't just throw them away.
I don't think you can count them out. They're definitely going to have their races. They're definitely going to be a handful. I just, from a pure, speed perspective, like, your Bryce Fords and your Brandon Hogues would be the two that, like, I see could potentially be the biggest threat of making a big jump. They've kind of had the flashy moments of showing a great, speed and, good performances. Not that your Januses and Rastrellis haven't. It's just they've, maybe had a few races where they're a real standout. And if they could put that together, that could be, deadly combinations. And then, like you said, your veterans obviously been there, done it. So they're going to be tough week in and week out because they're, mature and have good programs and, are going to be there to fight it out.
Yeah. And there's always the new guys coming in too, that we don't know.
Yeah. Definitely a couple. I think there's quite a few rookies coming in this year. I'm not honestly sure who's all coming in. They're going to have their ups and their downs. It's part of being a rookie, learning curves, all that fun stuff. So, definitely could be something that, throws a wrench in the plans of what you're thinking of what to expect. But, I think I still think the big battle will be between will be between the five of us there, kind of from that 7-3 position. Like, it's been 2 years now that we've all been kind of jostling back and forth and, there still hasn't been a single person to necessarily break out from that group and kind of catch Chad and Joel. And at some point, someone has to. So I'll just be curious, who figures it out first.
It's coming.
Oh yeah, soon.
Yeah, it's coming. Joel's very dominant, very fast. Chad is almost a freak of nature, with his intensity and his drive. But as I've been paying more and more attention to it, the gap is shrinking every year.
It is. We're continuously getting closer. I think more guys have led laps now. More guys are, getting starts and pushing the leaders. It's just at the end of the race, those guys still have an edge and still figure out how to be first and second every weekend in and out. And I think there's a few of us that have got a taste of that and are figuring it out. It's just, got to bide your time a little bit and learn it. Obviously, those guys haven't had to do the same. So I definitely think it's coming. I definitely think there's going to be some really tight races. Obviously, Joel and Chad are still going to be in that top three every weekend. It's just going to have to figure out how to be there with them.
Exactly. Do you watch any other forms of racing?
I try to. Obviously the dirt bikes are the biggest one that I really pay attention to. Other than that, what I can, every once in a while, a little F1 or the truck series from up by me, because that's just close to home, your Crandon and all that fun stuff. But mostly just the dirt bikes pay attention to, your Supercross in the wintertime, and then try and pay attention to the outdoors as much as possible.
Who's your guy?
Who's my guy? I was always a Dungey fan growing up. With him out, I like Cooper Webb, just, obviously run the same number, and think the dude, just like the attitude, all business. So he shows up doesn't always seem to be the flashiest, but seems to put it together and win. And then just your Eli Tomac, that dude, he's kind of like our Chad Weenan, just consistently a fast, bad dude. And then the only other one would just be Ken Rocks, and the dude's got some fight to him. Just all the adversity he's had to come through, another one that you kind of just have to cheer for, because it's crazy what the demand's been through. So that would agree.
I was speaking to somebody about his injuries, and he's technically disabled.
Yeah. It's his one arm it's insane. He does what he does.
Yeah. And this off season, with what he's raced in the Supercross overseas, and the straight rhythm that he did, I'm a fan, but I'm also a USA guy. Nothing against Germany, but I want the Americans to win first. But I've always, just after he's came back, he's just missing one piece of the puzzle to pull it off. And I think it's the arm.
The question is, every year you're just waiting, because he has a race or two where he puts it together, and then you're like, okay, is it going to be the year? And something always seems to plague him a little bit. But yeah, that would be a dude, like you said, obviously go USA, but that's not definitely a dude I don't mind rooting for. He's so close to putting it all together and being there.
Right. And I was an anti-Tomac guy for a little while when he was riding green. But I watched him ride that Yamaha and got energized again with his skills and his talent, and got excited, because the old Eli was back. I mean, he was having fun and he was riding hard.
Yeah. The only one I forgot to would be Chase Sexton, just being from kind of back home, being close, but he's, you just never know with him. So he's kind of a loose cannon on the track. So freakish fast and then over the handlebars. But it looks like he's putting it together.
Well, he's got stiff competition coming to the team, with Jet. So
yeah, that dude's another kid from overseas that can definitely ride. So same thing though. You just never know with them. But I think that's all of us young guys. So it doesn't matter. That's what I like to watch about it. Like going back and forth watching, like me and Jet are the same age. I think he's like within, months, and like, crazy to see, where those guys are at and the mistakes they make. Like it's all similar. It's all a learning curve. So it's crazy how fast everyone can be and what the littlest things make a difference. So
you're 19, right?
Just turned 19. Yep.
Yeah. You're still a baby.
Oh yeah.
Still a baby. And this is going on your third pro season?
I'll be going into my third pro season.
Wow. That's pretty impressive for as young as you are. Just think that you could race till you're 40.
Yeah, it's insane. Almost 25 years in the pro class.
Yeah.
So
Bo Barron could be your dad.
We always say that about Chad. I mean,
right?
He's double my age. Like up until still, he's the dude's twice my age. Like it's crazy. So, and that's back to the Huevos. Like that was cool, racing John Natale. He's the same age as my dad, so 47 years old or something like that. Like, these guys could be your parents. Like, and you get to go out there and race all of them. So cool. So
I was impressed. Natale, he's always been a physical specimen, but
he still looks like.
Yeah, I want to know what he's doing to stay looking so young. I mean, he's physically fit. He's not too gray. He seems strong, talented, ready. In the after interview, when we were walking through the pits, he said, "I'm coming back." I'm like, "Oh, great! Hey, no problem, brother." I think that you got something for him for the first half of the moto. You better train if you want to ride that second half.
Yeah, I think. Yeah. I mean, can't count them out, that's for sure, but definitely won't be easy. So.
I think that the short spurt races like that, I don't think his age would be a factor.
No.
A 22-minute ride at the level that you guys are riding now, which he was there, it might be. That age might be a factor there.
Yeah, I would just be curious, like hand-eye coordination and things like that after 40 always slows down and stuff like that. I'd be curious if he notices a difference or not. Not saying he does or doesn't, but would just be something I'd be curious into, like how that would play effect into things. So didn't seem to bother him much for a sprint race. But you just see it in all sports, like, unfortunately, it seems to be the older you get, the more you slow down a little bit. Unfortunately, as you get older, you get smarter and wiser, so it kind of balances out. But would be curious on that.
Eichner was close to 50 when he quit.
Was he that old?
Yep.
Okay. So it's obviously possible.
And when he was racing all the time, if he would have kept racing at that level physically, I mean, that the last crash that really took him out, injured him to the point where his, when you're off the machine long enough, it just doesn't come back. If he could have fought off that crash or recovered faster, he might not have lost what he lost, but he's still a super talented rider. When you go ride with him on the trails and stuff, see you later, Doug. But you watch him in the dunes, he can still ride. He's ridden some off-road stuff. Still talented, not the same speed, but still very, very talented. You don't lose the talent.
No, just lose that little bit of an edge is what it seems like. It gets harder to push to that little extra bit. And make the turns.
Did you see Joe Bird at the race?
Yes. Briefly.
He looks like a linebacker.
Yes. Like he played football.
Yeah, he doesn't look like he was that skinny, thin motocross racer.
Yeah.
I don't know how he did it.
Must have been on a serious diet because, that's a big frame. But Chad's kind of the same way too. When I think of it, like seen some pictures when he was young and stuff, and like he's in that same boat. Like just the dedication and the diet and everything that goes into it, like they make it work.
Man, the sacrifices that those guys make to because of their frame. Wow.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. You're still 19. You can almost eat anything you want and it doesn't affect you, correct?
For the most part. So you can definitely to the point where I can definitely tell differences in things you eat, especially before races and hard workouts and things like that. Just because I've tried to diet and be clean, and when you're not, it just doesn't go so well for you. But for the most part, you can pretty much eat what you want and be, almost as good as you are any day. For me, it's recovery and things like that. Depending on what you eat, I notice, my body recovering faster with certain foods than other foods and not fatiguing as fast.
Let me ask you that question. I mean, at youth, as far as recovery for you comes so much faster than it does for an older rider. What are the things that affect your recovery the most, as far as eating sugars or what have you?
I would go more along those lines. You're very, like you said, processed, more of your red meats are slow, not the greatest, kind of upset the body a little bit, things like your everyday pizza, or if you would stop at your normal fast food joints, if I were to eat something like that after a day of riding, compared to, going home and having, maybe some grilled chicken and a salad or something. I noticed that to be the biggest difference, especially and it might just be more something with my body and dairy, but if I have dairy, and then go to ride the next day, I never feel as good. I don't know what it is with it. Just seems to really bother me. So it's something I try and stay away from. If I would go have an ice cream cone or something like that, say, it's just not going to go so good for me the next day when we're trying to do some kind of high intensity physical activity. Just not going to have the endurance. Just never seem to feel more lethargic after eating something like that.
Really, the red meat seems kind of odd to me. I guess it's better if you're doing a heavy physical sport versus a lean endurance sport.
Yeah. Something just that, I don't know. Just always kind of another, more of a lethargic thing. Don't seem to necessarily be as energized and as physically on point when I eat something like that compared to your greens and things like that.
Really, that's the plant-based thing or the vegetable-based thing. It always throws me for a loop because I just don't seem to have the energy when I eat more, when I try to eat less protein, per se.
Yeah. A lot about what you eat when you do it is all I've learned about it. It was something I did for a year and a half, was the complete vegan deal. I ate red meat and all that before that and couldn't stay away from it. So like I still do a lot of chicken and white meat, try not to really do any red meat, just because it doesn't sit with me the best. But yeah, like when I finally, like, if I did it right, like I think it's a very touchy like diet. Like there's a lot that goes into it between taking the right, vitamins and like eating the right foods all the time. Like it's much harder to get your proteins out of that diet. So I think it's a lot of what you're eating in that diet. Like, are you, having enough nuts and like different kinds of proteins that don't involve meat? I think it's very hard for most people because it's really hard to intake enough food with a high enough amount of protein for yourself. Like you said, it's a lot easier to go eat a piece of meat and get so much protein from it than eat a bowl of leaves. Like you're not getting near the protein, so you have to eat different foods and different things to make up for it.
Or protein supplements and things like that.
Yep. Protein shakes. Like that was a big thing when I did that diet. Like you'd have some kind of protein shake in the morning to make, just to get yourself going with all that. Because you're definitely not wrong. It's definitely something like if you don't do the right way, like you're definitely going to deplete yourself a little bit of a few things.
Wow, that's something that's changing, and the dietary stuff is starting to affect you guys younger and younger. Where years back the young guys didn't worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's more just our day and age. I mean, just sports in general, football, basketball. Like, I just think with the technology that is available to us, I think everything at a younger age is taken more seriously and there's more effort put into it, I would say. Not that there wasn't before, but there's more, viable research on what to do and how to be successful than maybe there was back in your day. Because I know even, me and Chad have had that conversation of, diet and things like that, from what he was doing compared to what I'm doing at my age. Like it's not very similar. But I think you just see it everywhere with sports, all the different exercises and routines you can do for your body, ice baths and different things that probably weren't something that kids did, 15, 20 years ago, really.
That ice bath thing just blows my mind.
Oh, what it does for your body?
Yeah.
Oh man. In between motos, like if it's hot out, like it's almost like you just have to. Like it's crazy how like energized your body gets from that.
Is it get in the ice bath, sit there at the time, get out, get dressed, go to the line type deal?
Usually for me, I'm more of a like after the moto, I try and get it out of the way. Like I try to do it as soon as possible, like to kind of recoup, like come off from your first moto, super hot beat, like your body's exerted. Like I feel like I try and get in that ice bath as fast as possible to like let my body recoup as fast as possible and then have time to like chill back out before I have to go back out for a moto. Like I usually try and take an ice bath, like chill out, have something to eat, like totally relax my body.
Well, you know that the ice thing is not new.
No, it's not real.
There's footage of LaRocco getting in a 55-gallon barrel years and years ago.
It's crazy though what it does for your body, and like how many more people take to it. I feel like how much more of a common thing it is. And kind of like what is that, Epstein salt baths or whatever. Like I know after football, like that was something that you just do. I just think there's a lot more ways for, young kids my age to be able to like help their body. And I think it's, another reason why you see guys like Chad make it so long too. Like they're digging into that research and, learning how to keep their body at its best for that long.
Well, there's a cold shower deal where every morning you get up and take a cold shower instead of a warm shower, and it's supposed to be really healthy for you.
I've heard of it. So
yeah,
not something try, but I've heard of it.
Yeah. I deal with this guy. I do business with this guy, and he's been doing it for over a year. He said he loves it. Now it's just get in the shower. It's no big deal. And I'm like, yeah, okay, you keep doing that, bud. Not me.
Oof. I like a nice warm shower in the morning too. Wake up like, man, that would be rough. But I've heard the same thing and seen the research on it. Like it makes sense. Like it basically doing the same thing as an ice bath's doing, just right away in the morning. So yeah, I don't know. Well, maybe as I get older, something I get into, but at this point in time, I don't know.
I'm a pussy. I ain't gonna do it. Unless that physical therapist or I get a trainer or something, they say, yeah, this is what we're gonna do from now on. But yeah, right now, no way, not gonna happen.
Yeah,
nope. So, any parting thoughts for the up and coming riders in 2023?
As in rookies?
Anybody?
Oh man. Just do what you can to prepare. Come in as a new season and set your goals, set them high, and put in the work to get there. So hopefully we pray for no rain and nice sunny days and races. And hopefully everyone puts in the work and does what they can to do their part, and hopefully everyone stays safe. So try and, get faster while staying on the machine. So push yourself, but, don't go too far beyond your limits. Just slowly work yourself into it.
That's a good thing, sir. Hey, I really appreciate you taking some time with me. I will get you some information, and if you have anything that you need to release or get out to the fans, please reach out to us. We'll be more than glad to make that happen for you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. We'll definitely be in touch as the season rolls around with some updates and some cool things. Going to have some different additions to the program and some more things going on. So we'll definitely have to sit back down here.
The team here at ATV-TALK would love your feedback. Please email us at hello@atvtalkpodcast.com. If you're in need of a consultation for your current racing program, a custom ATV, or an industry guest speaker, I have the company for you. Duncan Technologies International, Inc. offers host, MC, and guest speaking services at events. Builds custom ATVs for recreational riding or racing around the world. And they offer consulting services for professional teams or individual racers. Send inquiries to duncantechinternational@gmail.com or call 619-716-1532 for more information. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, don't forget to share us with your family and friends. The podcast is available on all streaming platforms, and you can find us on social media as ATV Talk Podcast. We're on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter.